of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open the meeting with public comment. Is there any public comment? Yes?
My name is Joan Potter. It's been a while since I've been here. Same complaints. I would like to, how do I get to be put on the agenda? I would like to be put on an agenda for a public comment.
Okay.
And can I do that, say, July 15th? We're gonna be gone for a couple of weeks, so it'll probably give me that long to get the public comment out.
Okay. We'll get you on there.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Shirley?
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions. Last week on June 24th, there was a trust bill submitted and no action was taken during the actual meeting. It was to be discussed in a closed door meeting in the afternoon, is that correct?
The
Trust board bill that was discussed but not acted on in the morning, and we were told it would be acted on in the afternoon, is that correct?
No, there was no action taken on it.
So I have some
We
questions. Oh, go ahead.
We didn't have a closed door with the trust board meeting with the trust board on the 20th.
The trust board was not invited to this meeting.
I think that's what we're gonna try to do, is have a meeting with the trust board.
About that bill?
Yes.
Okay, because I guess my question is with closed door or afternoon meetings or whatever goes on, is the secretary present at those meetings?
Not if it's a
Secretary is not
closed
present
door.
at a closed meeting.
Is it open if you have a working meeting in the afternoon? Are you present then?
Depends on,
If I am requested to be there.
Okay, I guess the rest of my questions are probably moot points if you didn't discuss it, so. I'm just
Mr.
trying to
Chair.
clear the air here.
I believe she's referring to Debbie Randall's claim.
Yes, that's what I'm referring to.
Debbie Rabb, when we have a working meeting with Debbie on the budget, Ann usually doesn't sit in on those meetings because Debbie's going over everything on the budget.
Okay, so was there an action taken on the bill that was submitted by Debbie last week?
No.
I'm sure, I think you said Debbie Randolph, me.
I'm sorry, yes.
But I
I'm
think Mike
sorry.
answered Debbie Kelly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm like, I wasn't at a meeting.
Okay, I was just questioning because I wondered if it had been discussed. I had some questions, but if it wasn't, I guess
No,
I don't
it
have any
wasn't
questions.
discussed at the meeting, no.
I have a
Okay,
question.
all right, thank you.
Who requests the secretary to be there?
Beg your pardon?
You guys request her to be there at the meeting to take notes and?
No, we did not request her to be, request Debbie
Randolph.
Randolph to be at the meeting?
No,
No, we did not.
The secretary, who requests her? The
Yes.
secretary. You guys request her?
Yeah, she comes down and does minutes.
Okay, and will she be there at the trust board meeting?
Not
Can we
if-
request you to request her to be there?
Not at a closed door.
Okay,
If the closed door personnel meetings are very restrictive on what you can and can't do and who can and can't have. Because when you get down to the closed door, all those minutes are supposed to go into an envelope that goes to the county attorney, that goes to a file somewhere where
okay,
it's only opened by a district judge, I believe.
okay. Good to know.
Any other public comment? So we can go to the, do you have a certificate of survey review, Bernadette?
I do,
You do?
a family transfer.
Okay.
If this is the new process, I know this is the first one, we discussed this last week. If you would like me to present the certificate of survey from now on with the landowners present, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a family transfer, certificate of survey for Robert Dale Price. And Mr. Price is here today to answer any questions you have. I also did not make a copy or 3 copies of the affidavit I tend to not want to be wasteful, but if you would like these, you can each look over one in the future, I will do that. But, so for now, here's the affidavit along with a cover letter from Mr. Price.
I would prefer getting a copy via email
Okay.
afterwards when it's signed. And that way we have an electronic copy instead of a paper copy.
Super, okay.
Hey Nicole, can I ask you a couple questions? The road running through these tracks, is it a to be constructed road or is it an existing road that we already have? This one right here.
I think this is Price Road,
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
but up to my question is access easement to tract 1 and tract 4.
Right, I'm not
How will we
seeing,
access it?
I'm not seeing an access easement on tract 4.
Okay. And is
so
there,
we don't
and
know.
and how about here for tract 1?
Well, this is existing, 30-foot wide.
Wait, it looks like it's just right here. This is,
Oh, I'm
this
sorry.
is, this is the
Easement,
well
you
and,
said
well
everything
and, well and water line,
Water line easement, you're right.
and is there as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was reading this as access when I originally looked at it, but there is no access to this lot.
And I don't believe, is there any access to this one as well?
It doesn't appear to be, since this is well and water line easement.
Mhm.
So Nicole, is there access to track 4?
There doesn't appear to be on the survey.
Let me answer that question.
Yes.
Yes, there is a 20-foot access that goes from Price Road across the lot that I own to the side of that and goes out to Lot 4. The surveyor didn't think it was necessary to put down for this. He hasn't surveyed it, he's a lot, I mean, his business. Anyway.
Doesn't that have to be a deeded or an easement recorded on here for that?
You know, I guess I would want to look at MCA. It seems as if yeah, I would have to look at MCA. I was hoping that there was something on this checklist that access. Because the question then to me would be if in the future someone were to access that, if it's not shown on this survey, I don't know if it's shown on this COS. I can go and look at COS 2525 and see if that it's recorded on there,
Okay.
if you would like me to.
I would,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Do you mind if I bring it down here? Okay. Okay.
Can I make another comment?
Yes, sir.
On track 4, that's going to a son who also owns 39 acres immediately to the south.
You'll have to speak up, I can't hear you.
Track 4 is going to my son who also owns a track exactly to the north of it, which is agricultural land, which will continue as agricultural land.
Oh, okay.
Yes, we're getting a family transfer. It's in CRP, some of it, so the survey doesn't, CRP does not come out till 2022 or something like that. So it will stay in CRP beyond the 2 years that you're recommending for family transfers.
Okay, okay. His access is off adjoining land.
So it'd be this piece here you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. If the piece ever sold in the future though, there'd be no access.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, sir.
Perhaps the reason the surveyor didn't do that is we're going to make some property line changes to the tract that is in section 30. We're gonna move the line to the north, so that is more than 40 acres. Then the track, this track here, 40, is gonna move its borderline to the north, taking part of the next two tracks, which they're bigger tracks, to make them 40. The surveyor didn't wanna do that all at one time for some reason,
Okay.
so that's gonna be done in the future. You'll probably put the road on them, but anyway.
So this tract 4 is going to the son that owns adjacent land, so.
Yes.
Do we still need to have access to this piece irregardless if it's going to the adjacent landowner?
There's a road that goes to it.
So I think that, I don't have my MCA book down here with me. Do you know if, does it say anything about access? Bernadette mentioned that these family transfer lots don't have to have access to the survey through a COS process. And maybe she can speak more to that. You had the code,
Yeah, I
didn't you?
do.
Okay.
I think
don't have it.
764207. But on an exemption survey, they are exempt from review. So the only thing the commission can look at is whether or not the landowner is using the exemption to evade the subdivision law. At the last legislation, Tara Depew brought forth a proposed bill to require easements and access to family transfers and other exempt surveys. The legislation refused to act on it. They said these are exempt from review. We cannot require anything on them. And it's unrecorded on the internet. It was about an hour discussion at the legislature. But they do not want to cross that line that these are exempt from review. So once you start putting requirements, it no longer is exempt from review. So as it stands right now, the only thing the commission can do is to look at an exemption. Is the landowner evading subdivision law or not? Just for clarification. And you won't find anything in there if you look to require easements or utility easements or any requirements whatsoever. I did not get a debriefing on Dan this morning like I normally do to bring these forward. So I'm not familiar. Now, I don't know if he failed to put it on. If it is an oversight, we have no problem putting it on, but it can't be a requirement.
Okay.
So what the MCA at 763207, divisions or aggregations of land exempted from the review, but subject to survey requirements and zoning regulations, exceptions, fees for examination of division. Subsection 2 reads, unless the method of disposition is adopted for the purpose of evading this chapter, the following divisions and or aggregations of tracts of record of any size, regardless of the resulting size of any lot created by the division or aggregation, are not subdivisions under this chapter, but are subject to the surveying requirements of 763401. And 76301 states survey requirements for lands other than subdivisions. All divisions of land for sale other than subdivisions after July 1, 1974 into parcels which cannot be described as 1/32 or larger must be surveyed by or under the supervision of a registered land surveyor. Surveys required must comply with 763406. So it doesn't say anything specific other than they have to be surveyed. So it does sound like there is an open door question for us. you guys wanna look at this, you're more than welcome to. And there's the MCA.
And my assumption is we can't require it, so I don't know.
However, here's the, that's our charge.
It says you have to provide for ingress and egress. If this person owns this land, if he was to sell this, he would have to provide that access. So for the purpose of this, I don't think that it has to be included.
I think you're correct. However, there's no statute that says we're required to approve lots without access either, which is that MCA. So it does leave it up to us with the provisions provided there, public safety, ingress, egress.
So that's something that we will address down the road if these lots are requested to be either another family transfer or subdivided.
Well, there's a philosophy in this position, and each person comes to their own definition of what that is. Are we here for today, or are we here making decisions that go into the future 10, 20, 50 years from now? 10 years from now, one of these lots sells without access. What kind of issues are there that we created? And that's why there's that MCA.
Can I offer
Yes.
a potential solution for this? Because I do not have the answer, but I'm certain that if I were to contact Tara DePew, she would have an answer. Do you want to table this till a later time? Can you, I guess that's the question, can you table it? I will go call her. You can, because I know I'm scheduled again for 10:30, but there were a few items in there. And then I can be back down with an answer. If that would help you with your decision, because I really don't know what the answer is. Legally, it seems, unless you have another direction.
I guess I'd like to know the answer to that question.
Would you also ask her to provide a definition of evasion of subdivision?
I'll call her right now, so I'm going to leave all of this where it is.
Thank you.
So we're gonna table that until Nicole gets back today then? Okay, so we'll table this issue until Nicole gets back down, so, let's see. Go with some, we have claims here of, claims in the amount of $96,469.24.
Somebody would pay a claim to settle that.
Motion's been made to pay claims and set amount. Is there a second?
A second.
Motion second. Motion's been made, second to pay claims and set amount. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. We have minutes from June 24th, 2019.
Thank you. I'll move to approve the minutes the 24th.
Motion been made to approve minutes from June 24th, 2019. Any for- Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Letter here from the United States Department of the Interior. Pleased to notify you that on June 20th, 2019, the Department of Interior issued payments under the Pill in lieu of taxes payment program. 2019, your county is receiving a pill payment of $690,604. Have a receipt of payment from Bill Kleiner in the amount of $232.52. Okay.
Excuse me,
I guess
Mr.
we'll go
Chairman.
to the Commissioner's update. I attended the hospital board meeting where they had continuing discussions with St. Pete's and also a presentation from the Billings Clinic. Also attended a health board meeting and the Rocky Mountain Development Council Finance and Board of Directors meetings. That's all
I attended the legislative subcommittee for justice and public safety, and that was for, the reason I was there with the County Attorneys Association, Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, the Victims Association, and a few others, was to advocate for a study into the transfer of the Board of Crime Control as an administratively attached autonomous agency under Department of Justice to a bureau within DOC. Our staff is now DOC staff. And it was encouraging. I think regardless of what happens, we got a huge win just getting the study. The bill was carried by Representative Bill Mercer, who used to be a U.S. attorney for in the state of Montana. And the committee seemed receptive. It brought together partners that have been working together, but sometimes at odds, and everybody was united on this one. It was pretty encouraging. So, again, big win, no matter what happens, we got the study, and that's the real positive point. And also, Board of Health was last week.
Yeah, right, all right, so I attended a lot of the same meetings. I guess one thing I want to comment on is that 2 weeks ago, we had a really good department head meeting. It was very productive, and we have another one coming up here in, believe it or not, another week. I mean, time seems to go pretty quick, and I think they've been good meetings. And, I'm encouraged by what goes on there, and hope everybody continues to attend. I'm trying to think of the last meeting that we had down in the south end of the county for emergency services. I don't think anything new since then. Still, I think we're gonna have another meeting. Brandon coming up here probably before the rodeo, I think.
Yeah, I can't remember if we set a date on.
Yeah. July 12th, right?
I was thinking the 12th or the 19th.
Yeah, I think it was the 12th, so that's the next one that is set. I guess maybe by way of announcement, so everybody knows that next week, July 10th, there'll be a commission meeting down in the south end of the county at Headwaters Livestock at 5:30 in the evening. And meet with those folks down there, discuss some of the issues that they have.
Where's that meeting at and what time? The one on the south end?
Headwaters Livestock, 5:30,
At 5:30 in the evening?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Go on to the 1015 city counter transfer, approval of agreement for transfer of entitlements.
You have that? right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what this is our airport receives funds to do continued maintenance, but they never receive enough to do all the maintenance. So there's a program out there where airports all share whatever entitlement they get. So for example, this money is going to be going down to the Livingston Airport to help them with their project. Now, when our project comes due, then all these other airports will donate their money back to us. So it's a pretty innovative way of getting the funding we need to help do the improvements on our airport. So what we're doing here is we're agreeing to transfer those entitlements to the Livingston Airport at this time.
Thank you for your explanation.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So is there a motion to approve the transfer of entitlements to the Livingston Airport then?
Yes, I'll move that we transfer our entitlements to Livingston Airport.
And I'll second the motion.
Motion been made and discussed, made and seconded to approve the transfer of entitlements. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I have a quick question.
Yes.
You said that commission meeting will be July 10th. Will you also have the regular Monday meeting here on the 8th?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I got mine.
That one? Okay, good. Okay, Mike Conkey, Broadwater County DES Coordinator. We get federal grants every year, emergency management performance grants. One of the items on our work for this quarter that just ended was to put together a recovery framework, pre-disaster recovery framework. And we've been working on this now for several months. The May LEPC, Local Emergency Planning Committee, reviewed it, kind of went through this. And basically what the framework is it's kind of like a plan, but if we have a disaster in our community, like for instance, major earthquake, it's like a 7.5 or something, we're gonna knock some buildings down here in town, most of these brick buildings and stuff. Or if we have upstream dam, Hepkin Dam fail, we're gonna have some water in town, and most of the basements, we have to evacuate town. So what FEMA has is they want us to put together a pre-disaster recovery kind of a plan. The plan, this is kind of the framework. What we do is we look at the policies, procedures, shared responsibilities. On page 2, it looks like the organizational overview of policy agents. Of course, agencies are the board of commissioners, the city, primary contact agencies, and primary and coordination agencies, support agencies, and then utilities, communities. Those are the agencies we'll be working upon page 2. Page 3 deals with purpose, scope, shared responsibility, and how to activate the plan. Page 4 deals with situations and the assumptions, and then the concept of operations deals with, we have pre-disaster preparedness, we have an emergency coordination center we can open up here in the courthouse or up at the fairgrounds at 4-H building if we have to evacuate the town. Short-term recovery activities include, the continuity of government, sheriff's office, things like that. Restore essential services, goods and services for the community. And then return the community to stability. One of the first things we do on page 6 is going to have to do an initial damage assessment. We'll do that according to, that's how we get money from the feds. We turn that information into Montana DES, they give it to the governor. Our county commissioners and the city may declare an emergency. We request the governor to declare an emergency, and then the governor requests the president to declare an emergency, and that's all based upon the initial damage assessment. And then we will request state and federal assistance. We're going to rely upon mutual aid resources because we're a small community. We're going to ask our partners next door, adjacent counties and stuff, to come and help us. If they're affected, then we're going to draw out of Great Falls or Missouri or somewhere else. On page 7, it deals with federal disaster assistance programs. These are federal laws that have been around for quite a few years. And it talks about the Stanford Act. And there's individual assistance programs, mass care, emergency assistance, crisis counseling, unemployment for people that don't work, can't work, defense legal services, disaster case management. And then on page 8, it talks about individual household programs. That's for individuals, and public assistance, that's for government infrastructure, that's for us. Programs how to get roads, bridges, buildings back up and running. And then there's another program the federal government has, Fire Management Assistance Grant Program, that's for wildland fires. Broadwater County participated in that program in the 2000 fire season with Costa and Monroe Fire. And they'll pick up 75% of the cost. And we actually ended up putting our firefighters on the payroll. If they're not working at their jobs and they're out on the fire, then they don't have income. That's a federal program. There's a procedure how to do that. Long-term recovery from disasters talks about how we're going to do that. Building a long-term recovery process, and there's various steps that are recommended. There's all kinds of websites there, anybody can get on there and look at those. And then on page 10, we talk about recovery manager. We need somebody that just actually, I've worked for a year or two doing this management. The feds recommend it be somebody different from the DES coordinator, disaster emergency service coordinator, because that coordinator is focusing on preparing for the next emergency, the next disaster. This is somebody that has a background, perhaps in economic development, stuff like that. And they recommend having a local disaster recovery committee. We have a local emergency planning committee. They're gonna be busy planning, continue planning for the next emergency.
So my question on that is that something that we set up now ahead of time or
Nope.
at that time?
At that time, when we declare an emergency, we're gonna deal right away with the short-term emergency things. And then we're gonna handle that, get the sheriff's office going, fire department, ambulance, hospital open, get ATM machines right. After we get that going, then we're gonna switch into the long-term. And then you're gonna appoint a manager and you're gonna appoint local disaster recovery committee at that time. The reason we wait is it might affect different businesses. If it has nothing to do with downtown here, it might have something to do with Tossin. Might deal with like another big disaster our community could have is a train wreck with this Vulcan oil explode. Now got half the town, the half was close to town, burned half the town down. So there'd be different people on it based upon the type of a disaster we have. So we kind of wait until it. Page 11 deals with authorities, references. And then on the back page, there's acronyms. You know, federal government, kind of military, they can't do anything without an acronym. And I try to, when I write stuff, I try to use the full name with the acronym in parentheses. And Commissioner, that's kind of our framework. That's why it's a framework. It's not a plan to recover from any disaster or a particular disaster, because it would vary differently with earthquake, flood, snowstorm, long-term power outage, fire, all different types of emergencies. And try to keep it as short as possible. We want this to be part of our emergency operations plan, as is Annex K. Any questions, commissioners?
So I see it's changed a little bit since the previous one.
It has.
Okay.
We have tried to make it simpler, more direct. We've had some feedback from different people. And try to cut out stuff, but make it useful. So that it can be pulled off the shelf real quickly, be as presented to the commissioners and the city council. This is kind of our roadmap. It's not real specific on type of a disaster. That'll come with the type of disaster we have. Maybe we never have to use it, hopefully not. It's kind of a roadmap, framework, as opposed to a plan.
Great, thanks.
Well, do you have any questions? Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman, I want to just personally, Tim Ravendall speaking here, thank you for bringing in a document for us as citizens to follow what you're talking about. It makes a big difference to be able to know what really is going on. We can reference it back later and have the actual details in, if there's any questions, we know where to go. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Commissioners want to adopt this, you do it today, or put it on the agenda for later, do whatever you wish to.
Is there a motion to adopt this, or put it on the agenda later? We have it on the agenda today.
Yeah, I would move that we adopt it. There's been a tremendous amount of work for this. We can include it with our already existing plan. I like the updates. I think they've been well thought out. So nice work, Mike.
It's been an effort by the local emergency planning committee and our partner, DES deputy coordinators.
Well,
Team-
thank you
team
to all
effort.
of them.
Thank you, team effort.
So yes, I move we adopt.
Is there a second? Motion been made and seconded to adopt the pre-disaster recovery framework. Is any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. We will return back to the certificate of survey review. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
For sure.
Thanks, Mike.
So Tara was unavailable, but Corey Swanson, our county attorney, happened to buzz my office just as I was getting ready to call her. He would like to take a look at this. That was our county attorney's recommendation. This is documentation that I, in regards to what Bernadette was speaking about, Terra Depew, and the bill that she argued for, it was proposed Senate Bill 198. This is from Montana Association of Planners. They send off a report to all MAP members at the end of the legislative session, so this was their report concerning that bill, I'm sorry, proposed bill.
Okay. So it seems like they had some of the similar questions that we did, access. Okay. Well, when Corey's gonna look at this, do you think?
I know he has an 11 o'clock
Okay.
meeting. I don't know what the rest of his day looks like, I just know he has,
We'll probably have to
Someone
wait till
come
next
in
week
at
to get, wait till next week to get answers, I think.
possibly. And with that being said, do you feel that that these COSs, I'm not asking you to answer this question now, this is a question I want you to be thinking about. Currently, the COSs, when they come in from the surveyor, I look at them and the sanitarian looks at them, and then you get them. Do you want the county attorney, is there anyone else who would like to be looking at these surveys? Should we set up a survey review committee? I know other counties do that. It's a set day of the week, set time. Anyway, just something I want you to maybe be thinking about.
That's not a bad idea.
So that all of this, all of the burden of answering these questions is not on you, sitting here at this meeting when I don't have
Because we're
answers.
kind of in the process of redoing this, right?
Correct, yep,
So that would probably be a time to
to discuss that, yes.
do this.
Members of the committee, in my opinion, would be great to have Public Works and law enforcement. As well as planning and sanitation.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
As we listened to the requirements, it was read, at one point that was said is that the family transfers require surveys, is which was done. As far as the requirement for access, the gentleman that's getting this has access to this property from a road in other places, so he has legal access. Now, if he's going to sell it, then that's another requirement for a later review. He has to do family transfers or whatever it is in order to have someone approve these for transfer. Then if he does that, then he has to come back to whatever this committee is and say, "Oh, okay, where am I going to get access to sell this?" That is not the intent. The intent is doing a family transfer, son, it has CRP on it, the land he has next to it has CRP on it. He has access to that So therefore, it's not an issue that we need to cover at this time, in my mind. On the other hand, if you think the access road needs to be there, Bernadette says it's in our records, we can put it on and have it back to you. I don't think that's necessary, but it's available, it's there. Dana approved the access, it was paid for when we was considering this. I've been talking to Nicole and other people for 2 or 3 years on this. Didn't expect to wait till we had the problems that we're having now, but that's where we are now. But from my standpoint, this is a family transfer, not subject to review, it meets the requirements. He has access, we don't need to worry about access in the future because that's not required at this point. It would be if he divides it.
I guess that's kind of what I was doing with my comment I made earlier, is that something that we would deal with later
Unless,
in a different review.
unless that parcel was sold after the 2-year time period, there would be no review.
Gotcha.
That would only be if the boundaries changed. But if they remain intact, you know, as they're being presented
So if they
here.
wanted to do another transfer, would it come up for review then?
Correct. But then if that's still the requirement, you know, state law hasn't changed to make that a clear requirement for access, you still have that dilemma.
I guess my concern is that if owner A owns this piece of land and him and his wife get into a nasty divorce and somehow she ends up with that piece of land and he owns everything around it, she doesn't have any access. Or if some family fight dispute goes up somewhere, what I'm saying is if you get a family fight dispute going on or something and this piece of land is involved in some kind of a settlement, there's no guaranteed access to the piece of land, and it is a subdivided piece of land. It can be sold separately. So you really have no way of, I mean, all kinds of stuff can happen and you have no access to that piece of property.
Right. But if it's not something that you can require, I'm saying I don't have an answer for you.
I would like to hear from Tara, and I would like to hear from Corey. I'm saying that, I know when you have 2 attorneys in a room, you generally get 3 different answers, but I would like to hear what both of them have to say to the questions that I have on this. So I would ask that we postpone this till Monday, so that we can have a full slate of answers, and when we do make a decision, we have that information.
I agree.
I would agree with that.
Just so I'm very clear on your questions, because I don't want to have to leave at that meeting and ask more questions. I mean, not that you couldn't have more, but I just want to be sure I'm capturing your questions correctly. So what is the definition of subdivision evasion? That's one question. Second question, can you require a survey or a surveyor to provide access to all lots within a family transfer? Correct? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir, Mr. Buck.
The surveyor simply added the road that's there, giving access, and filed a new certificate of survey, would that satisfy your concerns?
That would satisfy my concerns, yes.
Okay, we'll do
What
that.
about this other track back here though?
Pardon?
Just track 1 over here, how would there be access to this
There's
track?
access on there now, there's a road to it now.
Yeah, there's
Look at that
an
carefully.
access right
There is a road
Where is
going
it?
back to
Right
it.
here. Right there.
Oh, private, okay, I was looking at that as a well access, I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, perfect.
So I guess, so if they came back with this with an access on there, we're okay with this one, but we still would like those questions answered going on
Certainly.
with our next subject.
Certainly.
So does that satisfy the boards? If they come back with an access to that lot, are we okay with this transfer? Or is there something else that we want to do before we get that back?
I want the legal opinions.
Okay, okay. So we'll table this again until next Monday.
Okay.
I'd just like to make a comment that the legislation was taped and online. I think it'd be very educational to watch, because the arguments you guys are having right now are very similar to the arguments that were had for about an hour, and the legislation still said no. If it's exempt from review, it's exempt from review. And just like right now, we've had 45 minutes of review of an exemption from review. So I just caution that the reason MCA has surveys that are exempt from review, what is the definition of exempt from review?
Thank you for that. Okay, so we will go on to our 10:30 here, certificate of survey review procedure update to include landowners.
Yes, which we kind of covered some of that earlier. So this is the certificate of survey review procedure checklist.
Thank you.
I made an edit. Number 5. That the planner and the landowner, previously that line stated that the surveyor would present it to you for review.
We talked about too that we were thinking about creating one form that works for all types of reviews. Would this do it?
If you would like me to create one form for all, I can certainly do that. I know that was discussed at the last meeting too.
Is this where we want to add our review committee? In this- in
After
here?
this discussion this morning, I think that would be a good place for it.
Mhm.
I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah. And we want to list who it would include.
Correct.
Yep.
And, it would be a meeting open to the public. I mean, and the review committee would not necessarily be making any decisions, simply reviewing and asking these questions at that time,
Mhm.
so that by the time the COS got to your table, most of those questions could be answered more readily.
Yeah, I agree. It kind of streamlined the process.
Mhm.
I wonder if we couldn't add that and revisit this also next week.
Okay.
And maybe in talking with those folks, they will have ideas too on perhaps who else, or maybe we have just the people we need for that committee.
All right, I want to give Nicole an idea who we want to include. We mentioned county attorney, law enforcement.
I have public works,
Public Works.
sanitarian,
Yeah.
and planner.
One of the other people I'm wondering about is you, Ann, as the deputy clerk and recorder. Would this be something where you could offer expertise, what you've seen? Or would this be just added burden for what you do?
I don't have any strong feelings either way.
Perhaps we could ask Doug if he'd be agreeable and give it a shot.
In other counties, it's, that do have a review board, it's usually the clerk and recorder, the planner, the examining land surveyor, and a county attorney. I think, not that they wouldn't be welcome, but once you get road departments and sheriff's departments and all, you're getting into a lot more review. Again, I said, 76 Ford, can't think of the number right now, but you are to review the exemption of whether or not it's an evasion from subdivision. So normally it's the ones that have expertise on evasion criteria that would be looking at that. Does that make sense?
Does.
Not, you know, the subdivision process has, of course, the roads, emergency and all that, but when it's exempt from review, it's supposed to just look at the exemption being claimed. Sanitarian is another one that's usually on there. Clerk and recorder, sanitarian, examining land surveyor, planner, and some I believe have a county attorney, but I don't know about all of them.
Thanks, Bernadette.
And would you like me to create or draft a checklist similar to what we use for the family transfer affidavit for next Monday? So instead of the checklist, it would be more of a question and answer form. So for boundary locations, agricultural exemptions, family transfers. Can't think of any other exemptions right now, but I would make sure they were all in a separate form for each. Okay,
Sounds good.
Be helpful.
all right.
Nicole, can I return this to you and ask you to send this to us? This letter?
Absolutely. Electronically for all three of you?
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to the newsletter.
Yes.
You ready?
Yes.
Or postcards. So you've expressed an interest in sending out newsletters at some point in time, or postcards and take a note card to share information with the community. I'm just looking for a little direction and guidance on what information you would like included on that. So I have just an example, this, not content necessarily, but format of a note card or a postcard that could be mailed out. If we did EDDM, every door direct mailing, it's less expensive than even using our bulk mailing permit, according to the gals at the post office. If this is something you would like to do, or like to instruct me to do, if this is the direction you would like to go, I'm just looking for a little guidance. I think it would be important to keep promoting our county webpage. Any other information you would like added?
One of the things that I guess I have a question on this, and I brought 2 more postcards too, so you guys can see them again, not the content, but just the size and shape. If we did a 8x11 newsletter like the one we did in January, or it went out a little bit after that, if we put the EDDM at the right place, then it would be a lot less labor intensive. You could just fold it in half, tape it and go. But for $2,500, that's a lot of work. If we did these, all it is the design time. Yeah. And to be able to do these every month would be less expensive. but it's also a way, we have to find a way to communicate directly with our citizens, because there just simply isn't, other than the website, a way for them to get factual information about what's happening in their county. We could have one month deal with mosquitoes and let people know what the facts are with the mosquito larva sighting that we have going on, the relationship with FWP, what they can do to be proactive. Another month, we could have roads talk about a construction project, and if there's anything to be aware of. The solid waste plan could be shared with everybody. We did the TED in the newsletter. The WIC services, sharing with people that that is indeed in Broadwater County and is part of a partnership between Lewis and Clark County and BHC, which is pretty exciting. As well as a whole list of other things that we do any given month. There's about a dozen things going on. This is just a nice idea, I think, of being able to communicate directly with people and drive them to the website continually as habit until that habit forms and catches on. So that's kind of why this was brought up as an idea. One, it's less expensive. Two, it's less labor intensive. And three, it gets directly to our citizens and lets them know some facts.
What's the number of households that we would send to?
I wanna say just under 2,800.
2,800? And what do you think our cost is on these?
I'm not sure what the cost would be. I could do some shopping. Through different companies, online companies. There's a company in Helena.
And I'm guessing it doesn't have to be all colored
And these fancy
Expensive,
photos and,
maybe
yeah,
just
I mean,
be-
I know if we just did, a 2-color.
more two-color.
Mm.
Actually, I don't think full color is any less,
Okay.
or any more expensive anymore.
Okay.
That used to be the case, I think that's changed.
We'll check into it, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can get you an exact number for the mailing. I will go to the post office and find out. I know they have that number. That's
Yeah.
where I've gotten
So we
gotten
can
that
get all
information before.
our associated costs.
Okay. And the price of printing, as well as the price of postage. Noticing. And all of that I can have ready.
How about a mock-up?
Okay.
Just an example, something we can, kind of play with. One of the things that we have is a real sense from the folks on the southern end of the county that they have been, that they're not part of Broadwater County. In my opinion, this is just one way of ensuring that nobody feels that way, or at least addressing it. So northern and southern and both.
How would you go about getting addresses? Would you go off tax rolls, or how would you?
No, actually, when it's every door direct mailing,
Yeah.
I guess this does have, but they just put it into every PO box, they put it in every mailbox. It's-
So how would you address the people in Three Forks to get their mail in Three Forks? Because you don't want to give one to everybody in Three Forks.
That's a good question.
There's actually different zones of the postcard, of the zip codes. So we would do Three Forks, because we want to include our citizens who live down there. And it would actually spill over into some folks who live on the northern side of Gallatin County, but it would hit our folks. So we'd pay for a couple of people to get a mailer, which is not a bad idea. Same thing with East Helena. We would take that portion of East Helena, that's the northern portion, southern portion of Lewis and Clark County. Our folks with the East Helena zip code would get this. So would a few people in Lewis and Clark County. Again, not necessarily a bad thing. It's not private information by any stretch, but that would be the way to ensure that all our folks get a copy.
I guess I didn't realize, I guess assumed that those folks got their mail from Winston.
right?
They get it,
About
that
it,
their
yeah.
driver, somebody, he's telling it for that person. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I said, you know, both southern and northern, because it really is both sides, both extremes of our county
Mhm.
that do have their services outside of Broadwater County. But we should do everything we can to include them, is my thinking.
I imagine the post office probably has a pretty good idea of who's in those districts and can give us a close figure, so we're not overspending too much, you know.
Correct, yeah, I made a note to
Yeah.
contact both Three Forks and East Town post offices to inquire about the number and logistics.
Mike, have a question?
Yes.
I have a question. How many man hours does this take to put together, and who's going to do it? And Nicole has requested less hours in her weekly schedule. Who's gonna do this? Everyone's asking for more personnel. Do we need more personnel for this too? Or is it going to be included? Everyone seems to be overworked already. So let's not hire someone else to do it. Just a comment. Has that been addressed, I guess would be my question, is manpower, man hours to put it together, to mail it, and who's gonna do it, and how expensive is that part? We've got the expenses now of what it costs to produce and to mail, but who's going to put it together and what's that gonna cost? Has that been addressed?
I think we've discussed that with you with your hours already, have we not?
That's correct.
And we don't do the mailing, right? Printer does the mailing, or?
So,
Do we just take them to, we get them in a bulk and take them to the post office spreads them out?
yes, so I would design it, send it off to the printer. The printer would print it, mail the boxes back to me, I would take the boxes to the post office. It's not an extremely cumbersome process. The most difficult part would be transporting the boxes.
Too bad you can't use your bicycle,
Okay.
especially in the summer months.
So as part of that shopping, can we get an estimate on what that's gonna, how many hours that's gonna tie up for you?
Yep. Especially if you're requesting a mock-up, you know, that will give me a good, because I've not done a note card before, or a postcard, I guess they're larger than a postcard, but if you're requesting a mock-up, I'll watch how long it takes me. I'll keep close track of that,
And once you get a template, it's just a matter the next month of cutting and pasting into those defined spaces,
right.
just like with the newsletter.
Mhm.
So,
Just
yeah, your
letting
first
it-
mock-up will take a little bit more time with what you've done with the newspapers, which has been exquisite work. I don't think it'll take much time, and then certainly 2-3 months from now, it's gonna be even a fraction of that.
I think similar to, you know, the website updates that I do now, it's just an automatic, I can make changes very quickly. It took me a little bit in the beginning to know where things were. I think that's true with any job.
And would it help you to pull together the communications committee too for some feedback or
Certainly.
assistance? All right.
Certainly. So by next Monday, I will have answers to all of these questions for you. So the exact number of mailers, the price of printing, the price of postage, and hours.
Say people hours.
And then you would like a mock-up of the note card. And I will contact both Three Forks and East Town post offices to find out how they handle that. That's your request.
And that might be something that we can kind of brainstorm what would be, maybe not solidly monthly, but in the springtime, that we just came up with 4 without much thought. Also budget, sharing the facts about that I think is very important for people. Doug's office, I would bet he's got 3 or 4 ideas for different subjects for months. I don't think it'd be hard to come up with 12 subjects per year. But if we didn't have one, we wouldn't send one out, would be my thinking.
Sure.
But, totally open to ideas on that.
Mhm. Yeah, and then I guess depending on where we come back with costs and stuff, we might even just consider a quarterly one, which it doesn't get the information out in a timely manner, but
And that's the thing is, it's something for us to talk about, how important is it to communicate with our citizens? Various is my opinion, but, we can certainly hash that out.
All right. And I know I emailed you, but just to recap, we are set for Wednesday, July 10th at the Headwaters Livestock Sale Barn, 5:30 for the meeting. If we can all be there at 5, just to make sure that we're there to greet people and set up chairs. And then we'll have a meeting the 9th at 10 a.m., correct?
The 9th at 10.
yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Great, thank you, Nicole.
Perfect, thank you. So, I don't know what you need to schedule and or post for your own sake. I have mailed letters to all of the affected landowners down there. We'll be sending it off to the newspaper, the Reporter today.
All
I
right.
sent it on to the Three Forks Voice.
And the Fork Works, is that the one we're using?
Mhm.
What's
Yeah,
that?
Three Forks
The Lewis
Voice.
and Clark Journal, what's that?
I don't know.
If it's another paper that I heard just down there, I don't know how active it is or
Is that the
how
one in
often
Belgrade?
how often it comes out. I'm not sure, just somebody mentioned it.
Hmm.
There was another publication down there called the Three Forks, or I mean, Lewis and Clark Journal.
All right, well, I'll look into that.
Um,
But so I've posted notices, excuse me, not for your meeting. I just want to be very clear on that. You're still posting your own agenda and what you need to do for the 9th and the 10th. But I've posted the notices of the Wheatland meeting and mailed it. So
Okay.
unless you want me to do something different. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks. Hey, would you send out an email to everybody and just ask them if there was a monthly postcard, if they would be interested, what kind of information you'd want on it? Might be too general a question for right now, but it might be good to just kind of get those creative juices running.
Something else coming. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Can I keep this just for when we talk to Corey later today, just
Yeah.
give him an update or a heads
Do you
up?
want to keep the survey as
Yeah.
well and then
Yeah.
just give it all back to me?
Perfect.
Sorry.
Sorry, thanks.
I'm gonna put this back here. Do you mind putting this document with it as well?
Not at all. I'll just put it all in my USB book.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole. We'll go to our 11 o'clock, Debbie. Spending analysis, revenue analysis, PILT allocation review, and computer replacement plan.
Is the ambulance ahead of me? You guys are done? Coffee, everybody's done? What do you mean here? So where are we at today? Any decisions?
Okay.
I think we were just continuing on, weren't we, what you guys were doing from last week? I don't have anything really more to give. I got what numbers I have in the preliminary budget, and it's in the book upstairs.
Okay.
So now it's just more decisions to keep moving forward. You guys are working on Pilt?
With our allotment that we, or with our pill that we got this year, what's our carryover? We have any carryover from last year? We have 100,000 that we had set aside for the hospital that didn't go, it wasn't used.
Right. There was, I think before we got the 690,000 deposit last week, there was still like 225 cash, I believe, something like that, that hadn't been spent yet.
And you were going to differentiate from that, how much was the Wheatland turn
With
lanes?
everything going on with that last night, I didn't get all that done.
No, I'm just
But, yeah.
reminding us of that. And the Deep Creek and Dry Creek,
Yeah,
was that taken out?
no,
Okay.
we barely got payroll done.
And that's fine, I
Because I
just wanna make
think we were
sure
still
that,
trying to, I still haven't got revenues from Mary yet, I've been trying to catch up with her, but she's running everywhere doing things too, so.
the only reason I bring
Trying to
that up
track it
is
down.
with our conversation to assume that there's 260,000 open cash
Right.
is not accurate, and I just wanna make sure we're all on the same page. So yeah, I know it was a crazy week last week, not a big deal at
There
all.
was the Deep Creek, and then part of our responses to them was we pay, I thought Mary said we were gonna get a little more money back, but I never heard when or if we've already received it. From all the final FEMA's and calculations, she said 4,000 or 5,000 more, well, I don't know if I've seen it or not. And she didn't say when, 'cause I know Sean was here, or I saw something where Sean was trying to get all the clothes out and sent an email to everybody on that. But it didn't give a dollar figure or when,
Okay.
so that one's another one of those in limos. Always, it seems like a month after the end of the year, there's always a bunch of lag.
Sure. That might be something where a request to Sean and Mary both for those solids by a date certain is a good idea for your sanity, if nothing else. Like, I don't know, just throwing a date out there, if we did like the 20th of July, then that gives you time before we get valuations to know kind of where we're at.
So we're still kind of hung up with FEMA on that determining some of those costs, is that right?
More on the reimbursement rather than on FEMA.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Because there was miscommunications on what was reimbursable expenses, and so Mary got,
Right,
we worked with Sean and Amber and got all that. A lot of it had to do with the wages and the fringe
the fringe, yeah.
to go with that. And so she said they were gonna accept it and get it to FEMA. That's the last I've heard, so I don't know if FEMA's still hem-hawing on how much, or, I'm just not positive on that one.
Right. Okay.
And then we're gonna wait kind of till the last minute to make sure Doug had all the taxes for the loan for solid waste to come up with the final. And Michelle just sent out like a stack of payments to vendors that have been out there this morning. So those have to hit the books yet, to further how much it costs.
So when Jessica left the fair board, we didn't pay her she was as a part-time, of course, she didn't have sick time or
Yeah,
vacation.
that's
days.
part-time, permanent part-time, they get it on a prorated basis based on the hours they work. And I just got those reports pulled Friday to get some of the journals done and put it back in their funds.
Okay.
Okay,
So that's
And I
why,
explained that to John,
that's why I went into the negative there. for-
partly.
okay.
I know some of the line items have been overspent, some, 'cause I think it was like only $1,000 payouts to Jessica, so it's not close to the 3,000 they're in the negative.
Okay.
So I think some of us have overspent, and I'm not sure without going back and really detailing if it was overspent last year fair, or if it's overspent wages. I gotta go hone that down again.
Okay.
'Cause I know for the groundskeeper, it was only like 400 hours for the year. And that has to go for the whole year, so some of it's done in end of one fiscal year and starts the next fiscal year, but you gotta keep, it's overlaps fiscal years, so you gotta take that 31 and you can't. 400 split between 2 fiscal years. Because how it's run, but it
Okay.
follows through in the end, so this year, okay, we'll take the beginning of the year from July till September after the fair. That's part of it, and then when it starts again, the next year, April to June is the other half.
True. Okay.
So,
I think that, guess that's something that, they bring up a good point. When we do hire a new fair manager and the hours that the groundskeeper is keeping out there, we probably need to define them a little bit better.
Yeah, I think so.
And we'll work through that process, not just a thought that came to my mind.
Mhm. We have some pretty good job descriptions. Some of them need some updates. I think that's probably one of them.
I actually
Or
did
two of them.
have Michelle print off the job description for the fair manager. And I guess we can talk about that now if we want. It was something I was gonna bring up at the end just for discussion, but do we want to get that in the paper this week to advertise for that position? It's gonna take several weeks before we can, kind of get in applications and we get to review them. And I guess we were just kind of wondering if it would be a good idea to have that person not really be wholly involved in it, just kind of watch what goes on with the fair board. They got a pretty good handle on it right now. I think that's gonna be fine, but they could kind of assist us a little bit and kind of go through the process a little bit. Somewhat educated for coming for next year. I think that's a good idea.
Couple of questions. Are you thinking of, so the fair board, I'm thinking they're probably crazy busy right now. Are they open to getting somebody on board prior to the fair? And are they open to that because they want somebody to come in and kind of be on the ground during the fair watching what happens? Is that
That's kind of my
plan?
sense, yeah. Just-
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, we'll go all the way till next year and that person will still never really know what has to happen.
Yeah, my thinking would be is if we didn't do it prior to the fair because of the workload of the fair board,
Mhm.
then we do it immediately afterwards.
Right,
Because they need to have somebody go to the conference,
right.
learn even ancillarily
Mhm.
what needs to be done. And there's work to be done during the rest of the year, it's quite a bit less. But yeah, I just didn't know where the fair board was at. If they want to do it now, I'm
Mhm.
good with that. I
Yeah.
don't have a preference at all. It just takes, hiring takes a long time,
It does
training
take-
takes a long
Yeah,
time.
it does.
But, yeah, I'm good.
I'm good. I think we're better off to have them go through the fair. They wouldn't need any training prior. I think we just need them to go through the fair with the fair board so they know what the fair board expects and kind of know what they're getting into.
Yeah,
Otherwise, they're gonna go into the fair next year absolutely cold.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, my concern was more the fair board because of the time
Yeah, I
involved.
think
But-
they're okay with that.
Cool,
Yeah.
all right, good.
All right. Do we need to make any changes to this job description or?
I haven't reviewed it myself, but we
Okay.
do have Jessica's feedback that she gave us.
Right.
Probably marrying or notes from that discussion with the job description's not a bad idea.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I just got this morning, I'll get that
information from Jessica.
Yeah, and John
Good
too.
job,
The
Nancy.
board may have some things that, you know, they know that manager does that are not in there, have changed since that was done 2
Mhm.
years ago.
Okay.
Or from their experience, things they'd like to see changed.
One question I did come up with is on the museum curators' wages. Are we still gonna go, this says the third year, that dollar bump? We talked when we adopted the matrix.
I think we brought it up already to the amount that we agreed to.
Just the dollar one, as the final year, because we went a dollar a year for 3 years is what
Oh,
we agreed
okay.
to.
Okay,
And this will
and
be
this
the
is your
third year.
Okay, then that's fine.
So I hadn't heard, so I wanted to check, because I could have missed it in a meeting I didn't come to, if that had been discussed. 'Cause I was working on stuff and,
We haven't discussed it again, but if we make a 3-year agreement,
makes a difference in the wages, but I,
sure, sure.
do we know any more on the computers?
Yeah,
Loaded question. I know Doug sent out,
many we need yet?
Doug sent out an updated list,
so
but I
here's what we
haven't
have.
studied it.
The highlighted is 18 different computers and their years that they'll expire. So we have several that'll expire in 10 and 11. One of those died last week.
The sanitation.
Yeah. So, if we divided, we have 42 computers on these lists. If we divided it into threes and put together maybe a 3-year plan, the ones that are highlighted are 18. Some of those, I think there's some errors. Mine was just replaced 2 or 3 years ago, so it shouldn't need replaced again. It was here when we were in the basement. So we can take that one off, so that's just 17. There's also 2 here for weed, but Mark went through and got everybody pads to kind of track where spraying was being done. I'm not sure we need those. That'd be something to ask Marion and Jessica, so that could take that down to 16. Doug already has it from his records preservation to replace 2. And I would imagine those are the older ones. We'd want to check with Doug which ones, but that could take that down to 14.
And he already did those too.
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
that
'cause he had the
claim was-
money.
That claim was, so are we gonna, some of these, can we just replace them? Can we just replace the Windows 7 with the Windows 10, or is that not, is
I
that,
think so,
is that?
as long as the computer's new enough,
Right.
you don't need a computer, I think it's just the software programming.
And that
Except,
would
and then
be-
I think we were looking at doing the computers and the software for some of those computers that were so old.
Right.
Probably a question for Josh,
Yeah.
on which
Mhm.
ones the computers are old enough to be
Do
in need. We don't want another repeat where the sanitation computer goes down and that whole office has to close.
Right.
So if we did looked at the highlighted, that's about a third, and then next year looked at the ones after that, it looks like they're mostly expires in 17 and 18. So it could give us a year or even 2 to put together a plan, a CIP specifically for computers. Maybe look at printers.
Does that get rid of all of our ones that are gonna die next June, and July they have to be back online? Do we get rid of all of that issue by doing what we're doing here then?
Yeah, I didn't realize that we had so many that expire in 17, 18, and 19.
I wonder if we should
sorry.
ask Josh if he'd come in, like yours is new weeds, and reassess the needs,
Yeah,
or how he's tracking that. I know a lot of it, they can look remotely, and they've got our computers labeled, like BW 101, 102, depending on your department. But if they're not all labeled, that might take care of some more of those.
yeah,
We
it
could do that.
help us to know what our plan is for next year.
Mhm.
Yeah, expires in 17, you know, you think about it, I wasn't, but it's 2 years ago, 2 years out of date. Which of those has the older program? I wouldn't imagine that many, but that would be a Josh question. The other thing this doesn't have on it is the printers. We know there's a few people who need printers. Depending on the office, like you guys have a very expensive printer because of the checks. Doug, I would imagine, has the same need. I'm not sure who else has the need for the higher end printers. So those are things that should be able to be wrapped up in people's budgets. But we could get an analysis for folks on scanners, printers, that kind of thing.
How long will it take Josh to go through this and tell us what's good and what's bad?
I don't know how fast he is.
Okay.
I can't imagine it taking very long if he focuses on the older ones, but I can't say how long it takes and what they look at, where Mike might know, he's worked with him more. I don't know.
So we have a little bit of money in the CIP for general buildings. We could take from that account to pay for the computers that need to be updated. And then when we put money back into the CIPs, just put another little chunk in there for our long-term plan. I'm thinking an extra 10,000.
I guess maybe that's another recommendation we need to maybe get from Josh, is what he thinks our cycle needs to be, once we get going here. Should it be every 5 years or 7 years or less?
Yeah,
That we need to get,
yeah.
instead of waiting until they tip over.
Right, yeah, it's so much less expensive to be on the front end than,
Well, and I thought
Back
just
end.
occurred to me, what about leasing? That it's guaranteed, is that something they would do? As a cost versus purchase?
Yeah, no,
You know,
It's worth looking
that could
into.
be cheaper if they do something like that. I think that's what the state or Blue Cross has done, is they lease them, then they're guaranteed every year. It's, and that's where their IT department takes care of that. That'd
So
be something we could, if they would do for us, or if we ask them, if they do it, I don't know.
Do they do that like on a 3-year rotation or something, or?
Blue Cross did, but they had a lot of people computers to replace, so. Things have changed a lot since I was there 13 years ago. Technology, maybe those last longer, or made better. Josh and them would be the good ones to know. I think that's just the basic standard. Kind of like our cell phones. Some people, every time they get a chance to get a newer one, they want it upgraded, where others, they've had them for years and now they're not working. So they have to. So it's just kind of a, what's best practices versus personal preference. Or policy, if we don't have one, it's,
So did we get something coming for sanitation then?
we do, they were gonna try and retrieve as much as they could from the old computer. And then Josh will be the one that'll get the new computer and put all that on there. That's the other thing too, is if you do have your computer crash and lose everything on it, you're repeating work that you already did. Another reason to stay on the front end versus the tail.
something I found out Friday, I think Mike told us this. There's only like 1 or 2 people that are backing up their systems like they're supposed to. Like we told Josh we didn't know how they need to throw something together, because I don't think that was ever discussed with anybody. We thought it was being done every night when we, or Wednesdays when we leave our computers on.
Right.
They were backing it up, so they're not, I don't think any of us realized that.
Because that's what I was told when I first came here, that leave your computer on Wednesday,
Mhm.
they'll back it up.
And we're pretty faithful at that, so if it's not,
Okay.
do we need to do another physical backup, then we should probably have these external hard drives to put things on. I don't know, I don't know if that was, I need to double check with Mike, if he asked Josh that.
So
He said, I think there's
we
like
don't-
2 of us,
We don't know if sanitation has that stuff backed up or not.
don't know, I haven't heard that. I don't know if Julie had a separate drive, I don't think so. But you're getting kind of at the tail end of things, some of this right now. Mike's dealing with it.
So, for step one, how do you guys feel about talking to Josh about upgrading the systems that are highlighted? This is Josh's report. And then taking it from the CIP, the building CIP, and then adding another 10 from PILT for that CIP for this fiscal year, which just start today.
Are you gonna have them replace or upgrade?
Whatever Josh says, so
Okay.
If they need an upgrade, then that would suffice. I
Okay.
think that'd be fine. If they need to be replaced, then I would defer to him.
Mhm.
He doesn't make any money off the computers. They're just our IT. So, and he's been very good to work with. He's really top notch. DIS has been a great company. But if you have another idea, I'm totally open. That was just a shot to start a conversation.
I think that's the best way to do it. As long as we get everything if we can get everything, it's gonna go down by the end of next June, because otherwise we're gonna be dead in the water the first of July next year with some of these. So whatever we have to get done, it's gonna go out of date on us, we gotta get done. As long as he can go through this and tell us, like, if some of these we've already replaced, then he'll know
Yeah,
that it's already been done, so maybe we don't have as many as we think we do. Or maybe we got more.
yeah, it's funny, I don't see sanitarian on here for current or not. Just don't see it even on the list. So those things can happen at any time, but it's funny that it's not here. Yeah.
Here's,
Was it on there?
it's on here, yeah. Julie Lather, right?
Oh, yeah. Where would she be? Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's not even on our list, but it did expire in 17.
Yeah, okay. Did Mike Myers is getting replaced already? It's supposed to expire in 11.
Who were the 7 that we did last year, the year before? Do you remember? Yeah, I don't either. I want to say Mike was one of them, but I don't remember. I think there were 7.
I don't remember.
14 of them that are over 5 years old.
Do you have an update on that intercap loan? The lady Pam is not with them anymore, so Louise is taking it over, and she's out this week.
Okay.
I had some questions with the request. It was, she sent back, said, sorry, but forget that one, then I'll be back after the week of the 1st, holiday week, I think, so. Just got some more clarification on that, so that one's moving forward now. And we did, I don't know if you guys noticed, but they are changing our, Conkey alerted us to this, but it was in the Maco's newsletter. They're changing their meal reimbursement rates. I don't know if we want to let people know if they expect their per diems, they might want to reconsider because they're increasing the rates. Breakfast is from 5 to 7.50, midday 5 to 8.50, and evening 12 to 14.50. That might be something people have to watch. It's effective July 1st, which is odd because usually it's the first of the year.
Yeah.
Some legislative bill, I think, yeah. House Bill 175.
Our resolution states we follow the state rate, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll have to watch that one.
Did they just change the meal rates, not the room rates?
Yes. The room rates, those fluctuate based on the season, and I didn't see any note to that. October through September, so that hasn't changed. And they follow the federal kind of, except those specific ones like West Yellowstone and Big Sky have a peak season and a low season rate.
So are you guys good with the computer plan to go to the highlighted ones, take money from the CIP, infill it with PILT when we do that? And ask those follow-up questions of Josh for everything that is not highlighted?
I think so.
Okay,
Pretty good plan for right now.
okay.
Is that something, is that Mike's building?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and it's for any capital, so it's not just for anything in particular. So computers kind of fall under that too. So with Debbie's update, if you're ready, I can share some more information about the Intercap and Opportunity Bank. So this is the buy-sell, not the buy-sell, this is the agreement to purchase that was signed. And it says it's for $120,000. Well, I talked to Tyler and he said, well, that's all with the assumption that you guys are gonna put $30,000 in cash. I said, well, where is that in the paperwork? He said, well, it's not there. Oh, okay. So, he said, if you guys have some cash accounts, and you wanted to transfer them to Opportunity Bank, he might be able to go upstairs and ask them to reduce the price of the building. I asked Doug if we had any cash accounts. I haven't heard back yet, but I don't know of any. So I did reach out to Louise, and that's where she, the email between you and Pamela was from a few months ago, and I just don't think it went from Pamela to Louise.
Okay.
And Pam's with a different company or agency now. So Louise did touch base with Debbie on Thursday or Friday, and then she's gone this week. But it sounds like when she gets this answer, it shouldn't be much. That inner cap was for 200 total, with the idea of 50 for renovations, and it's a reimbursement. So when we spend the money, we're reimbursed. So if we only spent 10,000 on upgrades to that building, then we would not take out the 40,000 loan.
Okay.
So, that's the difference. That's about 3-something%. This one's 5. Again with Doug, if he does have some cash accounts, we can talk about that. So maybe keep this on the agenda and readdress it next week.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, it's too good to be true.
Well,
I
okay.
was excited there for a while. But, according to Jeannie Steele, she said even 150 for the building is way less than it appraises for. So the county's getting a good deal regardless. It's just not as great a deal as we thought.
I guess after you mentioned that, I wonder if Mary, we need to follow up with Mary and her request as well.
It shouldn't, we can, there's 2 different statutes and the numbers are a little bit different. But based on our valuation, there's a formula you plug in that tells you how much you can have in total debt. And it's just under or just over $1 million. So if we're at 200 for this, she should still be fine.
Right.
On both counts, solid waste and for her plans for the road.
Okay, good. And I guess I was kind of more on thinking the lines of where she's at in the process, if it's sometime soon or,
Right,
because we'll have to make those decisions.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So you guys have any thoughts? Is the track we're on good? Or do you want to look at a different
Oh,
track?
I think the intercapital, I think I'm more comfortable going that way now after this.
Okay, all right,
Yeah, how about you, Mike?
Yeah, I think so.
okay. Doesn't hold up anything with the building, and we've already signed and agreed to the purchase
Right.
price, so.
Okay. I guess some of it's kind of tied to what happens with the district as far as for getting it tore down and getting it all remediated
Yeah,
and the ambulance, when they can make the move and
right,
all those kind of things, so there'll be some timing issues there to make this happen.
yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of little pieces that'll have to be organized,
Mhm.
yeah, that aren't so little.
Well, right, I think it'll all work itself out, it's just need to have a kind of a clear path to get where we're going, so.
Yeah,
Do we know what date we're looking at here?
we don't. I would guess we're probably talking, I have heard that they won't be totally done in that building until August at the earliest.
Okay.
We have the tear down, which is, we're looking at August, September. So, and then we also have Allison out for a
Right.
couple of months. So, yeah, I think we're probably looking at early fall at the soonest,
I think you're probably right.
yeah,
And I think we all agreed that we want to have Allison there for some of the input,
right,
as to
Yeah.
what she envisions as well, so,
yeah.
okay.
And Mike has said that he wants to move the ambulances first, which is a good idea. And then work on, first, a plan that accommodates a number of different departments, and 2, a plan that can help with the energy efficiency of the building. So, and he's also super busy in the summer, so even that, it just makes sense to
Yeah.
be okay with the one.
I know in our discussions with, that we had with the hospital, it was split either way of how the ambulance service was gonna go. One, I think, Billy said that they're perfectly fine with us keeping our district, and I think St. Pete's wants to use their own service. So, is that what you got out of what St. Pete's
So would
said?
St. Pete's not, they would not use our ambulances, or they would still use our ambulances?
Well, they didn't really say it. I asked if they would use, they envisioned them being St. Peter's ambulances. So I suspect that that's what the direction they want to go.
And I would imagine they keep our ambulances, one is brand new.
Mm-hmm.
But, for servicing Broadwater County, I would imagine they'll need the vehicles we have,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, if that's what they have in mind, or if they're gonna bring in their own, then we would have to, but we might have some plans for those anyway,
Sure,
so.
yeah. Yeah, and to just remain fluid right now with the
Mhm.
pending changes, we don't know what they are. Yeah,
Just so we kind of have an idea which way they were thinking.
yeah, that's good to know. And if it turns out we don't need those bays for the ambulance service, there's a lot of uses that
There is.
they can go to.
So, we don't know when they're gonna come to do the ambulance building, because the hospital has a ton of medical records, and they're gonna have to do something.
Yeah. We don't have a date, we'll have notice, plenty of notice, but they're looking at no sooner than August, probably September,
Okay,
give or
so
take.
they're kind of fallish as well.
Exactly,
So the timing
Yeah.
might be pretty close.
exactly.
Okay.
We've gotta get, the Petroleum Board and DEQ are still both on board, we just have to get everything signed on the dotted line. That requires the Petroleum Board meeting, and that isn't until August,
Oh, gotcha.
yeah. So, that's the waiting portion for that.
Okay.
And I do have a press release on the WIC program,
Okay.
and this was from Lewis and Clark Public Health, so I'm gonna submit that for the record. And I'll submit this to Ann, since we talked about it. That's the Opportunity Bank agreement to purchase. I think that's all I have.
I guess there's something that I kind of wanted to bring up, and I know we all got copies of it, and Brandon, this includes you. You know, recent legislation requires the county commissioners to form the interdisciplinary child information and school safety team. And it includes youth court, county attorney, Department of Public Health Services, county superintendent of schools, sheriff, chief of any police force, any board of trustees of public school district. So, we're all gonna have to kind of start working on this at some point. And
Yeah, I guess I lost track of that during legislation. I
It
thought that
passed.
was on- Yeah, I didn't think it was gonna pass.
Damn.
Must have stopped there.
Yeah,
I think Mako was not for it. I think they were, like it's, didn't really involve the commission, I mean, for decision-making and things like that, so it's just one more thing on your guys' plate, but I guess it got through, so.
Mako was able to change the legislation
Did they?
so that we help guide the formation,
right.
but we don't have it, the responsibility falls to you guys. So,
Merry
Yeah.
Christmas.
yeah.
Could somebody email that to me?
Here, or you can have this copy, Brandon. I just printed it off, so. That's, it's a sample resolution is what it is.
Okay.
And it gives the MCA there.
All right, thank you.
We also have the gas tax to do, the resolution for that. So it was a big deal when this was created in 17, and they wanted to have a website that was dedicated to the gas tax, and they were gonna track how many people were looking to see what counties were doing, and 11 people people looked, even it got onto the website.
Okay.
So that came up just last week. But we should do that, and then also, do you want to still do the ambulance district that Mike brought to us? We could have a public
Oh,
hearing day
sure.
and put everything together,
You should do that.
okay? And maybe coordinate with Brandon and the interdisciplinary team at the same time, so maybe 2-3 weeks
Okay.
from now, start the advertising,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay? Because I don't think, once the resolution is done establishing the team, it really is up to those folks to determine when they want to meet, how often they want to meet.
Right.
That's not on us, we're just doing the resolution to create the board, essentially. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I highlighted it on my agenda and still missed it.
Anything else? We do have to have agenda in. Did you get the email from Michelle?
Mhm.
Agenda has to be in early on Wednesday, right?
10:30?
10:30.
For the holiday.
I think we've been having drafts by Tuesday, so, yeah.
I guess we will adjourn until our closed door at 1 o'clock for a recess.
I do have a, well, I'll do it at 1, I have a quick update for
Okay.
you guys.